the last chapter. How about that? Isn't this wonderful? Go through half a semester of online, and we are finally here to the last chapter. So, this is going to be chapter number 23, behavior change. Going to be looking a little bit at the stages of change and looking at maybe some of the aspects of things to watch out for, maybe social support groups, some of the barriers that could be in place, maybe some of the ways to tear down some of those barriers, maybe looking at time and the quote unquote lack of time that is pretty much the biggest excuse that people will make. And is it real or is it perceived? So, going into some of those aspects of it. So, I'm not going to do too much of an intro and outro to this. So, the chapter somewhat speaks for itself. But if you have any questions, hopefully I answer them during the actual PowerPoint or potentially afterward. If not, just go ahead and email me and I will see you afterward. Enjoy. Chapter number 23, behavior change. All right, so let's look at the actual definition of what a behavior actually is. So it's learned and it can be changed by modifying antecedents or some type of stimuli or cues. And there's also consequences, such as rewards or punishments. Sometimes we can look at these as positive and negative reinforcements. And we'll get into more detail of that here in a little bit. The trans-theoretical model of behavior change. So this emphasizes motivation from an individual standpoint, some type of readiness to actually change whatever the behavior is. And there's also a personal history regarding the target behavior that somebody may be looking towards and wanting to change for the better. Change is only going to begin when somebody's actually ready to change and take the action. It doesn't matter what anybody else tells them. If somebody is not ready to actually change, then they're not going to change. Can't necessarily force it upon somebody. You can maybe put some nuggets into their head about it, but you can't actually have them change just because of your opinions or anyone else's opinions. That individual has to be able to take action for themselves. There's two key components to this. There are the stages of change and the attitudes, the beliefs, and the skills for the change to occur. You can look over table 23.1, which is the intervention strategies or strategies for the stages of change. We have pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, and then the maintenance stage. So the pre-contemplation is before somebody is actually thinking about it. So there's something that might be there that might eventually stimulate them, such as some type of campaign or promotion of exercise or whatever the behavior may be that they are going to change. Then contemplation stage, actually thinking about it, and then preparation, figuring out what needs to happen to set up goals, break down some of those barriers, and then move on to the action stage. Then the action stage is actually just exercising or changing diet or whatever lifestyle habit it might be. And then the maintenance stage is continuing to do that as long as possible, hopefully for the rest of their life. Basic needs according to the self-determination theory include autonomy, competence, and relatedness. Autonomy is referring to the casual agents of one's own life, being able to make decisions for themselves and not be forced upon doing something just because somebody else told them to, or just going along with the crowd, actually making their own decisions. And then competence is the experience in the mastery of whatever that activity is. And then the relatedness refers to being able to interact, can be connected to, and also experience caring for other individuals. Looking at this self-determination theory, behaviors that are more intrinsically or internally motivated actually have a greater sense of personal choice or autonomy. Again, autonomy is a very important aspect of life because making your own decisions, it builds self-esteem, and there is also a greater chance of being persistent in reaching some of those goals that one has in life and changing one's behaviors. Now, there's going to be some external or extrinsic stimuli as well for this motivation, and also internal or intrinsic. But again, the intrinsic motivation is going to be more beneficial for the individual. Now, applying some of the theories to promote healthy behaviors. The interventions should match the stage that the individual is in, whether it's pre-contemplation, contemplation, whatever it may be. Also trying to address self-efficacy or self-worth as well, and also determine the perceptions of the benefits and costs of the exercise or the eating habit change, whatever it may be that they're looking to change, or that maybe you're looking to explain to them why it would be a good idea. And also, if they're in the contemplation stage, trying to understand what the motivation is to exercise. Why are they trying to change their habits? Do they want to lose weight? Do they know somebody in their family that has just had a heart attack or diagnosed with diabetes? What is it? And from there, you can move forward and trying to come up with an exercise prescription or a dietary habit that can benefit them going forward. Encouraging the inactive and the unmotivated individuals. Presenting the information in a way that's actually convincing and making it somewhat personable as well. Politicians do this all the time. They try to make anecdotal evidence, make things personal. When they can visualize something personal, it's going to mean more to them. And exposure to physically active role models, enhancement of perceived benefits of the activity and the exercise, and also strengthening of the psychosocial variables such as self-efficacy for the exercise. Again, being able to perform exercises and have self-esteem, self-worth, and knowing that they are going to be able to do it. Influencing motivation and action for exercise adoption, assessing the personal, the social, as well as the environmental factors that are going to be supporting the current activity levels that the individual may be participating in. Also establishing physical fitness, motivation. Why are they there? Why do they want to change this? What are the goals? What are the specific goals? What are the acute goals? And what are the long-term goals? What type of support system do they have around them? And also, what are the barriers that they have? Could be financial, could be physical, physiological, could be psychological. So establishing all of those and trying to get a good picture of where they are at and trying to create the best path moving forward. It's important to engage in goal setting, behavioral contracts, as well as time management training. Lack of time is the biggest excuse and sometimes even a reason why people have lack of physical activity. So trying to set up some type of time management skills so that they can bring in some exercise throughout the day, even if it's maybe in 5 or 10 minute bouts of exercise. Now, looking at the self-determination theory in the motivational principles, the competence, the autonomy, and the relatedness. When we look at the competence, it's choosing the exercises to develop a sense of mastery. At the start, if somebody is sedentary, maybe put them into somewhat easier exercises. Maybe a power lift exercise is not the best because it does take a little bit of form, but simple weight training exercises, cardiovascular training on a cycloergometer, or maybe a row machine, they're going to be able to master that fairly quickly. And autonomy, engage the participant in the choice of exercises. What do they like to do? It'll establish the autonomy so that they can look forward to making their own choices in what they want to do and achieve. And then the relatedness, connecting with others in the exercise setting, maybe making new friends, getting a workout partner, the personal influences for exercise. So the demographics of the individual or group of people, maybe where they live, where they work, activity history, what have they participated in the past? In their past experience and their activity history. Was it a certain sport? Was it weight training? Was it cardiovascular training? Also, their perceptions of health, maybe getting into the Instagram culture that we have. Do they think that everyone on Instagram is just self-centered? Maybe that's why they haven't been exercising, because they don't want to get into that type of mentality. Maybe they think everyone is just a meathead who lifts weights. And also their perception of access to certain facilities. Maybe they think they can't go because you need to look a certain way, or it's going to be costing way too much. And then the time, we touched on that before. Also, the enjoyment of the exercise. Do they even enjoy certain exercises, or are there some that they just don't like, so therefore they don't want to do any of it because they feel like that's what they need to do? Such as maybe like a bench press or a squat. Maybe show them alternative exercises that they can perform where they can get the same benefit. Their aptitude, or how well can they do it naturally? What is their ability to start off? Just their general beliefs, maybe in exercise, in nutrition, in that type of culture potentially, what their self-motivation is, and also where are they in the self-efficacy, and more influences in exercise on a personal level. So we have this intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. The intrinsic motivation is they're getting some type of self-worth from it. They're not getting a prize from it like in The Biggest Loser. That would be an extrinsic motivation. They're getting it because they feel good about themselves after they do it. The extrinsic is somebody is giving them maybe an award or some type of accolades afterward for performing that specific task. And the self-motivation, how motivated are they to actually get up, maybe early in the morning or go after work or go in their lunch break to fit in exercise? In the perceived behavioral control, their choices of exercise and when, where, and how to exercise. What can they do? What do they have access to? And then also setting their own goals versus goals that are set by other people. Again, going back to the autonomy, setting one's own goals is going to give them more of a sense of self-worth. That's going to be more of an intrinsic motivation than an extrinsic motivation. You're not doing it for somebody else. You're doing it for yourself. And the social influences of exercise, the emotional, the esteem, network, and then informational support system. And trying to look for practical help with certain exercises. Trying to find people that can build a good support system for that individual. Maybe they're in the same stage of training. That's going to help them motivate themselves. Maybe looking at group exercises. And then also support from family, friends, and then also maybe their physicians. Again, maybe trying to find somebody that's going to help them along rather than someone that's going to look down upon what they're doing. And the environmental influences for exercise, that social support we've talked about, the environmental prompts, and that can even go into the support system in the social aspect. That environment may be at the workplace, at the gym itself, or maybe in the family. What is the convenience of exercising? Do you have to take time out of other things to build in exercise time? Maybe the cost is a limiting factor. Accessibility, attractive and safe facilities. That's a key aspect there. Now, also keep in mind to try to tell them that you don't necessarily need to go to a gym. You can go out and go for a hike, but maybe they don't have safe neighborhoods where they can actually perform some of these exercises. So trying to find very accessible, attractive, and also safe facilities, and finding those facilities where somebody can be there for social support. Maybe it's a trainer, maybe it's a manager, whatever it may be. And what are the barriers? Is it real or is it perceived? Time is probably a perfect example of this, and getting into the lack of time. Is that actually lack of time, or is it a perceived lack of time? There's time there. You just build it into the schedule somewhere. And as we've seen before, these exercises don't need to be a continuous bout of maybe an hour. It's good to get it done in one session, but even if they just go for 5 or 10 minutes at a time, that's still going to be more beneficial than not doing anything at all. Some of the marketing strategies for exercise, the media campaigns surrounding it. How are you going to visualize it in an ad for somebody to maybe get into that contemplation stage? The informational and educational pamphlets. So these are going to be the point of decision prompts. So such as down here, you have the guy walking the stairs, says, take the stairs. Walking up stairs burns almost 5 times more calories than riding an elevator. Maybe figuring out where to put that. Could be right on the elevator door or right by the button. So these ads can start to get into people's minds. Again, those nuggets that you place into somebody's mind that can start to grow. You plant that seed, and then they start to think about it a little bit more. Now they start to get into the contemplation stage. Maybe free passes to the gym. Go ahead and come in for a few days, do some exercises. We'll show you the equipment, we'll show you the facilities, and then maybe looking towards getting a membership. Any fun runs or walks, and wellness fairs and health risk appraisals. And sometimes even setting some of that stuff up for free. So getting them in the door and thinking about it is the key. Enhancing sustained motivation and behavioral adherence. So the self-monitoring is looking at the behaviors and the feelings to identify any cues to exercise and the adherence to the exercise. Notebooks, calendars, any fitness tracking apps, maybe even pieces of equipment like a Fitbit or an Apple Watch could be beneficial for them. And focusing on the time management, prioritizing tasks and block time out for the exercise. Again, it doesn't have to be an entire hour or 2 hours. It can be 10 or 15 minute sessions, maybe even shorter, down to 5 minutes. And then goal setting. It should be specific, but it should be attainable too. In coming up with acute short-term goals and the long-term goals. And again, these need to be, from a behavioral standpoint, they need to be specific. So just not lose weight. How much weight do you want to lose? I want to get stronger. Well, how much stronger do you want to get? Is that power? Is it overall strength? Is it in the upper body? Is it in the lower body? Is it bench press? Is it squat? So getting the specifics of it. And it needs to be measurable. Weight in pounds is easily measurable. Strength, easily measurable. And it also needs to be reasonable. If they come in and they start benching 150 pounds and they say, I want to be benching 500 pounds by, let's say October, and it is now July, probably not going to happen. So it needs to be reasonable and realistic. Also the reinforcement, social reinforcement, and the self-reinforcement. Getting a support group together to help that individual and building self-esteem so they can be more confident in their abilities. And the behavioral contracts, which is what we did in lab number 9. So a written, signed, public agreement with clear, realistic objectives and deadlines. So in that lab, we looked at what the goals were of that individual, what the exercise prescription is going to be, and then they signed it. And in that signature, in that little part there, and I think it was page number 4, it stated at a certain period of time that we are going to reassess the fitness level. Then once that's reached, maybe sign a new contract. And trying to prevent relapse. So defining any high-risk situations, maybe it's the support group, maybe they're not as supportive as what was once thought. Maybe there's certain individuals that are looking down upon some of the changes that they're making. And then revision of plans to keep it from being boring, because that's one of the major reasons why people drop out, is because maybe it gets boring. And the other part is because they're hurting, they're sore. And just letting them know that within at least the first week or so, there's going to be some soreness that's going to occur. And discussing this with the person, with the client ahead of time, that, listen, it may be tough, but we're going to try to keep you from relapsing and not going back to what you were doing before. And making it fun. That's the whole point, especially if they're not maybe trying to be a world-class athlete. Making it fun for them so that they can keep up their motivation. When you're having fun, you are going to continue to do something. If you're not having fun, you're going to drop out, you're going to quit, or you're just not going to do it to the best of your ability. Could be going through the motions. Switching gears to the health and fitness counseling, the communication skills are very important. Communicating with the client is a key component to this, and being honest with them, and also having empathy, respect for the person, some concreteness and decisiveness and what some of the goals might need to be, what they need to do to reach those goals, and genuineness, actually caring for the person and making it seem like you really do care, and you should care about the individual. If they feel like you are working for them and you care about them, they're going to stick with it much longer than if you're standing there maybe on your phone while they're exercising, or you're doing something else, or you're not paying attention. That goes into the genuineness. And again, being honest with them. Out of that, respect will grow. Now let's get into weight bias. There is some stereotyping and negativity in judging an overweight or obese individual based upon some preconceived notions and assumptions that they are lazy, they're unintelligent, they're maybe a little awkward, they're ugly, and they're unmotivated. And that might not necessarily be true. It could be. It absolutely could be. Just going to be completely honest. Some obese people are probably lazy. Some of them are probably unintelligent. They're awkward. They're maybe ugly, but beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And maybe they're just not motivated. But everybody has some aspects of their life that they are motivated for. And intelligence isn't just how well you can do on a certain test. Again, there's kind of that difference between street smarts and book smarts. And they might not be lazy. They just don't know how to do it. They don't know how to exercise. They've never exercised. They've never taken part in weight training or cardiovascular training. So getting them motivated to do it and showing them that it's not that difficult, and it can be fun. But some healthcare workers do demonstrate bias towards overweight patients because of those unreasonable assumptions that they might be lazy or maybe stupid and unmotivated. So trying to break down some of those barriers, because obesity has complex issues behind it. There are many different factors. It could be genetics. It's probably not the biggest factor. In fact, it's probably fairly low on the scale. But the environment, the socio-cultural influences, what types of foods are available in the culture, and also the individual behavior. Yes, they got that way because of some of the habits that they had, but maybe they can change some of the things around them, the environment. And that's where you would come in as the healthcare professional. And the weight bias and the interpersonal and environmental barriers. So you have the verbal, the physical, and the environmental obstacles. The verbal is that ridicule, teasing, all the insults, derogatory comments, pejorative language that individuals might use against them, or maybe have used against them their entire lives. And maybe it got so bad that they didn't even want to go out in public. They don't want to go to a gym because they're afraid that somebody is going to make fun of them. Then the physical, which is touching, grabbing, and other aggressive behaviors, could be part of the teasing process that they had growing up. And then any of the environmental obstacles. Medical equipment that might be too small, such as maybe gowns or blood pressure cuffs, exam tables, the scales, the skin fold calipers. The skin fold calipers really come in a couple different sizes, and there's only a certain range for them. Once somebody gets so heavy, their skin fold thickness gets so big where you need these great big calipers to actually measure it. And maybe at that point, underwater weighing or a DEXA scan is probably going to be more beneficial for them. Also, public chairs or seats that don't actually accommodate the people who are obese, small restrooms, small stalls, and then also the exercise equipment with weight limits. Some pieces of equipment aren't built robustly enough for people who are maybe more than 300 or 400 pounds. So not only do they not want to go to the gym because they might get ridiculed, made fun of, or people might stare at them, but some of the pieces of equipment might not actually support their weight, and even some of the treadmills or cycle ergometers. But trying to break down some of these limitations and barriers, that's the key factor. Getting them into the gym, getting them on some of these pieces of equipment, maybe having them lose a little bit of weight by doing other things first, and showing them other pieces of equipment that can be used in other forms of activity before they get into the gym, so that they can build autonomy and confidence. Okay, that was chapter number 23, Behavior Change. That was the last chapter of the semester. I thank you for watching, and I'll do the wrap up here in 1 second. Okay, that was it. Chapter number 23, the last one of the online portion of the semester. Thank goodness, right? Don't have to see my face on the screen anymore after this week. But maybe you'll be sad too. So this one was behavior change, and the behavior change that we were talking about was exercise and or some type of health aspect, some type of change that they're going to be doing to get themselves in a better situation to reduce risk of disease, maybe lose weight, and whatever their goals are. So we went into some aspects of some self-determination theory, the autonomy, the competence, relatedness, some of those terms and terminology that we went over, intrinsic versus maybe extrinsic types of motivations, and intrinsic being a really important one. Feeling good about what you're doing and feeling good just because you feel good to do it instead of getting a reward for it, maybe like in The Biggest Loser or something like that. And also looking at some of the barriers and some of the, I guess, excuses sometimes people will make up. And some of them are legit. Sometimes time is not there. Sometimes there are cost barriers. They might not have access to certain facilities or certain pieces of equipment that they want to work out on that would make it more fun for them and would keep them going in the exercise habits. So anyway, short ish chapter, I guess, but if you have any questions, you have any comments, anything like that, please let me know. I thank you for watching. Thank you for watching all of these videos, bearing with me and bearing with what is happening here in the past couple months. So I thank you for watching, and I will bid you do one last time. And I got cat hair flying all over the place because it's all over me and everything. So anyway, take care, everybody.